Today we're going to do a deep dive on the AI-powered design platform Kittl. Now, it doesn't just have your typical AI art platform tools, but also has some AI vector tools involved as well, making it the ideal platform for graphic designers or people looking to create print-on-demand products using AI. So I'm going to walk you through the tools, how it all works, so that way you can start learning how to use Kittl straight away. And if you want to sign up, check it out. There's a link in the description below, as Kittl are the sponsor of today's video. So to start off, when you first log into Kittl, there's a lot here straight away that's pretty useful. You got things like create templates for marketing, social media, stationery, all these different options to get started, and also a bunch of templates. And these templates are actually, if you've ever used any kind of online design platform, it can be hard to get one that has actually decent templates for graphic design. You can see here that the designs are really top notch. As far as I can tell, these are the best sort of templates that I've seen on any kind of online image editor, but it also happens to be AI powered, so that is incredibly powerful. But to get started, to start walking you through how this works, we're going to start with the basics and build from there. I'm going to come up the top here to create a new project. So you get met with a screen like this, and you can see we've got here some presets like a standard 1200 by 1200 pixel square image. You get to use this for social media. Any of these are like business cards, A4, A5, poster size. They've got a whole bunch of settings here, and you can even set the DPI here. So if you're going to get any of this printed, I recommend going to 300. Just remember, it also helps to know the actual size you want to print at. If you can get that size ahead of time, plug that in to this particular area, set the DPI to 300, then everything should be set to go from there. But if you go over here under POD presets, POD is short for print on demand. This is really cool. There's a Merch by Amazon t-shirt preset, a Redbubble preset, Displate, TeePublic. So if you're using any of these platforms, a lot of them are actually going to be here that you can use straight away. And if you're using something similar, even something like a Redbubble, is a great place to start. It's a nice high resolution sort of setup or printful. So if you're not sure, grab one of these ones with a larger sort of size and you'll be set. You'll have plenty of pixel sort of like dimensions or resolution to kind of work into. To start off, I'm just going to work with a standard image while we cover how this platform works. We're basically going to go a little bit back and forth to cover what Kittl actually does. So I come down here and hit create to get started. So you can see here we are met with a bit of a layout here, and we've already sort of got a tool open. I'm going to shut that down just to sort of cover the basics of what we're looking at first before we get into it. So now our project, at any point we can come up here and rename it. So I can call this whatever I want. I can call it test project. I can click these three lines here, which is known as a hamburger menu. I can rename the title. I can create a new project. I can duplicate it. I can see all my other projects. I can also set up things like guidelines, like a grid. So if I turn that on, you see I've got a grid here. I can turn that on. I can change the size of the grid. So you got a few options there if you want that. Change the units from pixels to inches. Also dark mode, if you prefer to work in dark mode. So you've got a few options there. And of course, your tools. Essentially, you got a lot of settings and sort of major project tools at the top here. Your on-canvas tools are on the left here, so the tools you use to create or put things on the canvas. You see by hovering over, the names kind of pop out. And when you actually open up a tool, on the right, the settings for that tool will come out. So if I click text and I add a headline like this, although I've accidentally added 2 on here, notice we get some settings on the right for that particular object. But for now, I'm going to highlight, hit delete, continue from there. So we can use our normal object here. We can also add in artboards. So if I had a multi-page document, I can zoom out a bit. I can use this to add in an artboard if I want to do that. But I can also hover over that artboard here. I can duplicate it. So if I have objects on there, but I'm going to click on more options. And you can see I can basically copy, paste, delete, and go from there. I'm going to click delete because we only need the one artboard for now. Zoom in a bit, holding and control on my mouse wheel. So obviously I can share, turn on notifications. And what's really cool is we have the ability to put our design on a mockup and download that mockup. We also have the option to print what we design or just straight up download it. And naturally, if we click on here, I can view my profile accounts and that kind of thing from there. So you understand any major settings are along the top. Anything you want to add on the canvas is down the left, and the settings will appear on the right for any objects you're working on. But also down the bottom here, you can check keyboard shortcuts if you want to start working faster. Learn these shortcuts to use on your keyboard, and you'll be able to work faster. And I highly recommend in any program that you use a lot, learning the shortcut keys will make you a lot more productive and you'll get everything done faster. So that's a good one to know about for the future once you start to get used to the platform. Of course, we have undo and redo and the ability to zoom in and out. And of course, project colors. So we can set up certain colors for our project and even view layers. So click here and I can move objects sort of one in front of the other or below in layers. So kind of like if you're using Photoshop, you can pop like 2 circles, one on top of another. If you want to change the order, you can come down to layers and change that order. But we'll touch on that as we go. But to start off, what a lot of you guys are going to be interested in looking at straight away, we're going to just start off with some of these AI tools. We've got like a design generator and image generator. I'm going to click on the image generator, and much like other AI art platforms, we can just type in a prompt. We also have turbo mode or advanced. Turbo is a simpler version of what we get in advanced. I'm going to stick with advanced because it's still pretty straightforward and easy to use. We can also find inspiration from the Kittl community here. If we turn on public mode, it'll share what we create with the Kittl community, and we can change the aspect ratio of our image. So 1:1, or we can go widescreen or portrait. And you see here, I've got a saved style here. You can upload an image to apply a style to an image or choose an existing image style. But one of the most interesting things is we have vector styles here. So instead of creating a bitmap image, we can generate vectors using AI. So to give this a little bit of a test run, I'll show you basically how it works. I'm going to add in a prompt. So I have a dog dressed in a business suit. I'm going to go for square for now. It'll fit our artboard nicely. And I'm going to go into image styles, click show all, and I can pick a style I think will best suit my image. So we've got clip art styles. All the styles from the left are actually still broken down here, which is pretty handy. So we have here something like photography, very realistic. We have like digital art styles, acrylic styles. If I want something like Art Deco to be a little bit different, I can click on Art Deco, and that sets a visual style for the image I want to create. So I've got a prompt, the aspect ratio, I've selected a style, and I can hit create image and use up 2 of my credits. So I click that, and I give it some time to generate. You can see it's generated and placed our image on the canvas. And it generates one image at a time, so if you need more and you're not happy with the first one, just hit regenerate until you get one that you like and keep that one on the canvas. I'm going to grab this and just resize it so it fills the whole canvas and zoom in a little bit. So you can see we're able to generate this dog image, which is pretty cool. And the Art Deco style there is very, very much apparent. For now, I'll bring that off to the side and we'll see what else we can generate with this tool. So I'll come back, keeping the prompt exactly the same. I can go into my image styles again. Maybe this time I choose retro photo and generate. And now we have this image here. So side by side, let's just shut this down for a sec. We'll zoom in. You see we have our Art Deco dog in a business suit and our vintage style dog in a business suit. Now, I do recommend checking out some of these different styles as you get different effects. But another thing I want to quickly mention before I move further is that you can easily upload a style like I said before. So if I take something like this image on screen, which I got from Unsplash, it's very easy to take that, upload it into the AI generator. You can even use the same prompt and you can generate an image that matches that style, kind of like what we see here. So that's a pretty powerful tool if you have an image you're trying to get something similar to or kind of replicate, is to use that style upload feature in Kittl. What's also cool is if I bring this over here and click on this image, once again our options pop up. So I can choose to blend this with other layers, so I can choose a different blending mode. But although if I move this one over and it's sitting underneath, if I click on this image of the dog here, I can change the opacity so it's sort of semi-transparent. I can change how it blends into the object behind it. So at the moment it's doing a color burn. I can do a soft light. You've probably heard of these layer blends before. They're pretty common, but they're very powerful for blending two images together. But you sort of get the idea. But let's undo, pop these two side by side again. And every time I click on an image, I also get this little sort of toolbar here, which pops up above. So again, I have a ton of options here. I can copy this, so I can paste it again. Once again, delete. I can erase a section of the image like this. I can crop the image and basically cut off a part of the image, bring that crop in a little bit. I can copy it or again, use Copilot. But what's really cool is the image tools over on the right over here is, for one, I can use an AI background remover. So if I click on that, it's now removed the background. I have a transparent background. So if I decide to move this image back over, Notice how the image in front of it, which we've just removed the background, has a transparent background. We can place it over an AI generated background or a background that we upload. And the ability to cut out objects, order them, and organize them on the screen is essential to basically having any kind of design freedom on a platform like this. But also, if this image size is not high resolution enough, I can come down, I'll touch on the image vectorizer soon. I can click the AI image upscaler and it will upscale that image. So now we have a higher resolution version of the dog. It has been upscaled using Kittl's Upscaler. So pretty handy tool. And once again, while we're here looking at this, you can see how we've got this image overlaying here. If I come back down to my layers, notice how we've got one illustration and another. And whenever I hover over each one, it shows a bounding box that's selected. So click one or the other. I can move this up and it will sit over the other image. And I can move it back down. So that's pretty handy. Like I said, we can change the order of the images, and as you edit, you'll get a whole bunch more in here, especially have objects like text, shapes. We can reorder these down here pretty effectively. But coming back to our options, we also have some effects. So if I have this dog here, I can go to my shadow and see how it's added a drop shadow, and it's actually added it to where the image is cut out. Now, sometimes I've had issues with software, usually less well-known software, adding a shadow to the box itself and not the object. But you can see here it's done a good job of adding a shadow to the actual object itself. And I can change how far that shadow goes, the angle that it sits at, how much it's blurred, and even the color. So I can even change it to like a blue color if I wanted to do that as well. But I'm going to remove the shadow by clicking this minus option here. I'm going to come down to photo filter. So I can change the color of the photo, so I can change the brightness, contrast, and if I want the saturation, I can make it much brighter colors, or I can make it almost black and white by dialing it back. Or the vibrance, you've got all these different color settings you can adjust really quite easily. You can even pixelate and get this cool pixelated effect, or even add in like some noise to the image as well. So you've got some nice filters there to go with it. And of course we can remove a color. So if I grab my little picker tool here and I say pick the yellow of the shirt, I can remove a color and I can up the intensity and kind of remove a section so it kind of cuts out that color on the dog. But again, I'm going to click remove and you can see how we're able to edit that image and do a bit more with it. Now we also have the image vectorizer, but we want to make sure we choose the right image to actually use this on. If we just take a photo, it's going to basically flatten out some of the colors and it's going to look pretty dull. Because vector graphics are essentially very sort of simple shapes, usually flat colors, although in a more advanced tool you can add gradients, but essentially we want to find something that's going to be very simple to convert to vector. So this image is pretty good for a vectorizer, although the little bits of noise, if I zoom in, these are probably not so vector friendly, but we're going to try it out anyway. So if I click on this image, I have image vectorizer and I click the arrow and I have some options. Now one color is going to convert this into a single color image. We want to bring these colors up to about 16, which is the max. It's a very high quality image vectorizer. A lot of images that are vectors can be more than 16 colors, but for the sake of the vectorizer, this is a way of cleaning up the image during the conversion. So to show you what I mean, also if I zoom in again, notice how this image is pixelated when we zoom in. Because it is a bitmap image, essentially bitmaps are made up of pixels, little square blocks of color that when viewed from far create an image. But by converting to vector, which is mathematically sort of calculated angles and shapes, we can really clean that up. So let's vectorize this image and we'll see the difference between this and the vector. I click vectorize. And notice how this is now really crisp. If I zoom out, we have this vector image of the dog. And you'll notice it's kind of dithered the noise in there, but essentially this is a vector object that we can print at any size and it won't lose any resolution. Now when you zoom in, the display may pixelize a bit, but the actual image itself has really crisp, clean edges. The more I zoom in, it continues to maintain that quality, as you can see here. But there's a bit more to it. Now that we have this vector image, we have some options. For example, for one, we have the opacity as before, but I'm going to just zoom in a bit more because we also have illustration colors. If I see all 16 colors, So let's say I want to change this particular green color here to something else. There's a few different greens in here. I'm pretty sure it's this one. If I click on it, I can change that color. Maybe I want to make it more of a blue. Maybe I decide I want to take out some of the greens and blue them up a little bit. I can change the color here. It's sort of more of a teal. And notice how that color has changed. I have still a few more little greens in here. So I'll click on this one right here. And again, drag it across. So notice now how we got two different colors. Now if I click on this and copy it, place these two side by side, you can see the green is gone and changed to blue. So we can select any color used in these images and just change them because they are basically just shapes. We can go in there and alter the colors so that we get nice crisp images with easy to edit color palettes. And because there's only 16 colors, it's actually quite easy to do. But I can also browse color palettes here. So I can choose, if I bring this across, I can choose different color palettes on my image to get a different effect. So there's actually predetermined color palettes you can try to take a little bit more design control over your image in an instant. See how this looks like a very old-fashioned sort of image, the way it's got that earthy kind of slightly sepia tone to it. Or we can move on to something different here. So not only is the vectorizer powerful for creating infinitely scalable images, but allows you to almost tailor it to your brand as well, as you can choose particular colors and keep a real consistency across the board from design to design if you wanted to keep those colors tied in on those objects. And Kittl makes that really easy, especially with brand kits, which I'm going to cover later on. So that's essentially creating images and using the tools that we can edit them with, but also vectorizing some of these images. But it doesn't just end there. If you want to create vector images, I recommend we'll just delete these off the artboard, come back to our image generator. Now I can go into clip art styles or simply find a style which is suitable for converting to vector before I generate my image. And we can then convert the actual image to vector from there, but sometimes it's a little bit too detailed. But you can always try it and use that as your main process. And as long as you choose a style that has relatively flat colors like Mascot, or any of these, you can more effectively convert these to vector pretty easily. So just keep that in mind if you want to create images that you plan on converting to vector. But otherwise, we come down to vector styles. And don't forget there are pattern styles here as well. So you can go in and do that and get a nice sort of repeatable pattern. But otherwise, we want to check out vector styles. Now the vector styles are primarily black and white because using AI to produce vectors is relatively difficult. But you can see here, we've got not only different styles like emblem, which is pretty simple, but also more detailed styles like vintage drawing. So let's start by creating an image using emblem. Let's delete our dog in the business suit here. Same prompt again, generate that image. And you see we get this nice simple dog graphic. But now I show all, go to vintage drawing, which looks a lot more detailed, generate that. And these are both vectors, but notice how one is very simple, cartoony, could be almost useful for part of a logo, and this one's more of an illustration. Once again, if I zoom in, you can see all the shapes are clearly defined. It's a single color. I can come in here and change that single color if I want to. I'll keep it as black for now. So it actually gets this really detailed vector design. And I come across, and it's nice, clean lines and image style here. So this is an AI vector image generator simply by going down to vector styles. So that is something worth noting because if you're doing a logo design or a t-shirt, this can be a great way to create images or vectors that are scalable and can be printed any size. So those vector options are incredibly useful for any kind of print design and especially those who are looking to create print-on-demand designs. And a lot of other AI platforms have some basic vector imagery or vector converters, but Kittl really, in my opinion, has the best vector features that are AI powered for graphic designers. So this is a really awesome tool if graphic design or print-on-demand design or anything of that nature is what you're looking to sort of basically create with your AI tools. While we're here, one thing I want to touch on is before we move on to say the design generator down here, is if I want to align these, and I hold down Shift and click both of these images, I can align them to the left, to the right, center, move them back over, hold down Shift, I can align them top, or because they're about the same height, they're actually centered. So if I make this one a lot smaller, I can go top, center, bottom, I can just tidy it up. You can align objects together pretty easily using these buttons. So that's a quick tip for tidying up your designs and bringing a little bit of order to the layout. But we're going to actually wipe this and start fresh. Now again, we're still on our test project. I'm going to come down here to Design Generator, because now we're taking things a step further. So we can design, say, a modern logo for a coffee shop or t-shirts. So we have some examples here to help us get started, like stickers. So maybe if I start with a simple logo design. I have a modern minimalist logo for a tech company with a hedgehog in the emblem. You'll also notice this little shuffle prompt button here. If I click that, it'll kind of remove the prompt and add in something else. But I can leave this here, but there are logos. If I click logo, that will just help it to understand what we're after. I go down and generate the design and wait for that to come through with a few options. So we have this here, add to current. So we have this with a little hedgehog in the emblem. So now this layout's pretty good. Maybe I don't like my hedgehog, so I can edit this design. I delete the hedgehog, come back to my image generator, choose a vector style. So maybe even this minimalist one again. And I say a minimal hedgehog emblem, modern text style. Generate that image. And now we have this cool textile hedgehog emblem. So we can go in and edit various pieces of this design. Now you notice that it is black. So where it has illustration colors, I can click on that. And you can see we already have document colors here. So I can just click this blue, or I can use this dropper to select. And now we have our design with a little hedgehog emblem. But this is also editable text. So I can change this to EST, so established 2023. I can change that to 2018. Where it says Innovate Tech, I can change that to Hedge Tech. And also I have all of these options here for the text. Now I'll go into this in more depth soon, but right now I'm just going to change the font to Barlow Condensed, change the weight to say semi-bold. And if I want that name to stand out, maybe I'll select this text and change the name entirely to white and apply that to the text, or I can use one of the document colors. So now I have this logo design, which started off as AI, and then I was able to edit the symbol with AI itself. So that is a powerful tool for speeding up logo design using AI, and then of course you can make little tweaks as you go. But let's head back to the design generator, back to prompt, and let's click t-shirts. This time I say, I have a metal skull vector emblem t-shirt design, red, black, and gold with the words Way of the Warrior. I also don't want to use this particular artboard. I'm going to instead create a new artboard that is much taller, and the resolution is pretty small. So I'm going to zoom out, make it much larger. So now I have a different shape altogether to my square board over here. I click on that, and now I have all this here. I have my prompt, I generate design. It hasn't put my Way of the Warrior there, but I have got a design. I'm going to add this to current project. And it's nicely fit the size of my artboard. And of course, the text here that says skulls, I can type in. I can type in Way of the Warrior. I'm going to bring the text size down a bit so it fits nicely. Center it. So now I have an AI generated design I can quickly edit. Now, of course, you can edit this design, run with it as it is, or even use it as inspiration for a design. Either way, this is a really great way to speed up that initial design process to kind of lay things out. And it actually has a few things in there that you might not expect. And you'll notice there's lots of little pieces here, like little textures and objects that we can play with. And we're going to touch on that in the editor soon. But again, I can change the colors on the right over here, the opacity. So you got all the usual options you'd need. Again, we have the colors, change the font. Everything here is on the right that we can change if we want to. But to cover some of these other tools, I'm going to actually start fresh again. So I'm going to head out and start a new project. I'm going to click the K button up here to go back to my home screen. So now we're back on the home screen, and we are going to touch on a template soon, but just to get through some of these tools again, we'll start fresh by heading up to new project. This time I'm going to choose a POD preset and go to Redbubble, and then I'm going to click Create. I zoom out a little bit. So we have our artboard here. We can start creating. One thing to remember is we still have templates. So if I go down the left here, straight away we've got our projects, and these are some of the past projects I've done. But also we have access to the templates. So we can not only add full design templates or t-shirts, but just like logos and bits and pieces as well. So there's a lot here we can start with. But again, we want to start fresh because I want to cover some of these tools and how they work. But I'm going to start with text. Now again, if I click on this, it'll add in this nice templated design. I can come in and edit it just by double clicking. And I'm changing the text. And notice they have little curves and little effects added to them. That's because these are all options that we have. So I've got my own little brewery logo here. So you can go in here and start fresh. But I want to show you also that that's pretty easy to simply go through and discover something. And there's a few different designs and they're very easy to edit. But let's start fresh again. And this time I'm going to add in a headline. So we get a little bit of text here. It's going to bring the size up so we can see it a bit better. Now I can resize the design by choosing the corners, or I can grab these side handles here to affect the size of the box width. So that will just change the size of the box and the text will remain the same size within it. Or you can grab the corners, the little square corners, to resize it completely. So let's just type in something like, again, we have Way of the Warrior and all our text options. Now as before, opacity, color, it's all there. There's a lot to cover in this video, and some of the more in-depth features we might have to cover later in order to make this video a little bit not too overpacked. But there are things in here like borders. So I can add in a border. At the moment, the border is black. So what I want to do is maybe make it something like red. And you'll notice that we've got this red border and a different thickness, and it sort of cuts in from the outside going inward. So maybe instead of red, maybe I make that black and I make the color of the text a gray color. I can bring that border up and we get this nice border. Now with this font, it doesn't look great. This font is not really suitable for this kind of design we're working on. So let's head down to the typeface. So you can scroll through, see what they look like in the drop down, but just simply try them out on your text till you see one you like. But for now, I'm going to go with Autobahn. So we get this cool font here. Might bring the border nice and deep. So instead of having a border effect, we have a line effect inside the text. I'm going to just hit enter. Bring the size up so we can see better what we're working with. So straight away, just this choice of font and adding the thick border effect has created a nice sort of effect on the text. But we also have different weights for certain fonts. This one only has the one weight, but as before, you might have thin down to bold, and I can left align, right align, you sort of get the idea, make it all capitals. So we've got all these different options here, including we can see what little glyphs or keystrokes are available for this font, so you can really explore that. But it starts to get interesting under transformation. Now we've lost the word warrior, but I can move this around, or I can distort it to get some nifty effects that way. However, I'm going to undo, and I will go back to putting this on the one line. So we have Way of the Warrior. I'm holding down space on my keyboard to click and drag. So now I can check out these transformations, and it's really cool that you have all these handles, so you can really customize the transformations if you want to and get something quite different. So you can create this cool flowing effect, or even just a nice rise effect. And a lot of this is actually the same setting. We just got a few points that we drag, and it's like a preset for those points. Things like the arch, I can bring that down, flag, it's all here, and I can move this slider back and forth to change the intensity and kind of back and forth from there. And once we're done, I can hit reset if I want to, or I can confirm. I can go for a full circle, and I can change the size of the circle. So let's just leave it like that. Confirm, and now we have our transformation. And at any point, I can still double click, edit that text. I can add an exclamation mark if I want to, and it'll just simply pop that in there. What's also cool, if we come to text shading, we can add some other various effects. So once again, I'm going to zoom in a bit so we can see a bit better. So here it's got this nice little shadow there. Under shading, I can offset this, change the angle a bit. So this is just like a solid drop shadow, but this here creates like a space in between, which I think looks a bit better for this particular bit of text. And we've got different effects. Now this has created more of a 3D effect, which is actually really cool and can have a really good impact. But for this particular sort of bit of text we got here with this font, this is going to be our best choice, I think. And I'm going to change it to red, so we get this nice cool red effect. Now we've also lost our border, so I'm going to add that back in. However, with the red there, maybe I'd like to change this a little bit on the inside, so I'll change the color, change that to red, or like a dark red, so we get this cool effect like that. So already you've got some pretty cool and fun manipulation techniques for your text to really bring it to life. But there's actually still a lot more you can do with it. And then on top of that, we have text decoration. So we can add in, so little lines, like a halfway point. We can change this effect around a bit. I can change that color to the bright red so it stands out a bit more. So you can got all these cool sort of like graduating line thicknesses there, and I can also move that, change that around, change the distance. There's so many little options here that are great for graphic design or people who are getting into graphic design to use without having to, and again, you get the AI powered tools that go with it. It's very, very powerful. So you can see we now have our text in a circle, and we can start to use that for our t-shirt design. This shadow is still a little bit far back. I'm going to adjust that so it's a bit closer. So that was very easy to achieve. So you don't need to be like this awesome graphic designer just to achieve an effect like this. Choose a good font, add a few effects, and you've got yourself a pretty good result at the end of the day. So now we've explored text and some of those options. What about some elements? We want to add some elements to our image. So of course we've got the basics. Now some of these are pro. See a little crown here? That's like a paid pro item. So we can add those in if we have a paid account. Basic shapes. So if I want to add a circle in there, again, I can add that circle, make it red. So if I want this on the page, I can do that. I can even add my shadow as I did before, increase the blur, the angle. And once again, if I click on the color, there's also 100% over here. I can change that to 30% to get a semi-transparent shadow. And I can even add a border again, except this time, I'm gonna make it a slightly different red so we get this nice subtle effect on the outside. So that's pretty handy. But also we have here masks. But before we do that, we've got a few other things here. We can upload images. Let's look for an image here. Got different photos. Let's try skull. Since we were looking at skulls before, I've left caps on in this particular instance. So we've got a few different options here. This one looks pretty good. Let's add that in. Let's remove the background. Now we have this nice neat skull. Now the background removal on this is pretty top notch. So we've got our skull on here. And again, I can add in a shadow, blur, bring it out a bit, change the angle, bring that opacity down to about 30%, and you can see how we've got this design starting to form. But also, let's add something in the background. Let's find a texture, like a texture red. This looks pretty cool. However, it's not really a shape that we like. So I'm going to move it off to the side for a second, come back to our shapes here, because we've explored photos that we can add, but we're going to add in a mask. So if I click show all, we have all these different shapes that we can pop images into. This here looks pretty good. If I drag this image in, it will mask it within that shape. So now I can add in this cool sort of circle here, but it's sitting in front of the skull. So I need to come down to my layers, but I can move it down to just above the background, and now it's sitting there nicely. However, I also want to move some of these elements away from text. So I can rotate this a little bit away so it sits under the O, maybe change the size a bit, move this down. I can even see a plain filled circle here. I can click on that circle, move it down as well. And maybe I want that to still be solid and treat the other mask as almost like an outline effect. So now we've got this really, really cool design here. We've masked an image. We've added in some elements and shapes. We can add in some ornaments here, like stars, little border corners, things like that. Maybe add in this raise image. So I can pop this in here, make that nice and large. And I want it to be centered. I'm going to hold in Shift. I'm going to select this, select the circle, select the raise, and I'm going to click center. Center them both. Move it back into place. And then I'll click on Shift and the text and I'll center it that way as well. So this the rays are now in front of the skull. So again, I just move that below the skull. And now we've got these rays sitting behind the skull. So now we're starting to get this really cool impact on our image. Don't forget we have this skull image here. With the photo filter, I can change a few things around, change the hue a little bit so we get a bit more red on the side there. The black doesn't look quite as dark as I want, so I'm going to increase the contrast, but also the brightness, experiment with altering some of that image. So now things are starting to take place. We have Way of the Warrior, our skull and our emblem, and some really cool effects in the background. Also, there are illustrations here. So if I wanted to, I could even get rid of this skull and search for another. So you can see we've got a few premium skulls here. We've got this candy skull, all these different cool designs that we can add in. You can also search for abstract. So you can search for anything up here to find as well. Brush strokes look pretty cool. So maybe I decide I want to add in a little brush stroke here. Once again, I can change the color. We won't go for red. We'll stick with gray. Move it down. So you already see how quickly, by using some AI tools or even just stacking some of the elements of photos that are already there, it's really quick and easy to start to piece together a design because everything's just sitting there ready for you to use. So if I close this down, we've been able to add text, add some elements. Brand kits is a little bit different. We've been able to search for images. We can also add textures. Let's upload something to add to our image here. Now, first of all, I've got some uploads sitting here already that I can just simply add in, like this samurai. These are actually some of the AI images I've generated in the past, or clipped images. So it will actually keep your uploads here, including the dog. But if I click here, I can upload an image directly. So I have this marble texture here. I can open, and you'll see it appear here. I can click on that, and it will appear on my canvas. Zoom out a little bit. I'm going to send this, use as background, and now I can actually have that in the background. Also, I've zoomed out. I'm also not a huge fan of this background, so if I click on the artboard itself, I get various settings down here. I can change the size and clip the content. I can make the opacity of the background much lighter, so it's not quite as full on. So you can see how it's sort of faded in there. But I can also get rid of it. I'm not a huge fan of it. I can make some adjustments also, but like we did with the image, but I'm just going to delete that background just because I want to show you how that works. Keep in mind, if I have a folder off to the left, I can drag my image in and just drop it on the canvas without even going to the upload button itself. So if you're one of those people who likes to do that, that is also an option. So we've covered a lot of this stuff here. We haven't touched on brand kits yet, so we'll get to that. We'll have a look at that soon. But otherwise, we have textures. Now, textures are pretty cool. If I click on textures, there's all these cool textures we can work with. And these textures are specifically designed to be sort of overlaid over the top of an image to kind of give it a really nifty sort of effect. So it has that sort of worn effect or whatever it is you want to get from that texture. However, I don't recommend using these if you want to download transparent PNGs, as it can affect the transparency. So I can click on this texture here and apply a texture to my image. And then if I come down and click on the texture, it's actually part of the artboard. There's a texture setting here. I can change the opacity. At the moment, it's on color burn. So if I just want it to be normal, which is black and white, not necessarily what we want, but you can see how we can have it impact our design. Probably multiply is a good one for this one as well, since there's a lot of black. However, color burn will not appear on the white, but it will appear on the image. So you got basically have a play with those blends to see what results you can get. But again, that's to show you how it works. But for now, for this design, I want to remove the texture. So I'm going to hit delete. And otherwise, I'm actually pretty happy with that design and ready to finish. What if I decide I want to see what this looks like on a t-shirt? What's really cool, for one, I can share this with my friends, but I can also go up here to Mockup, and it's already chosen a t-shirt. I can also put it on a laptop. I can move it around. I can put it on a phone. See what that looks like. It actually has angled that correctly. So it's not just t-shirts, but a whole bunch of things like wall art. So you can actually pop it up on a wall, see how it looks. But naturally, we're looking at t-shirts here. So I can go show all shirts, pick this one, I drag it into place, and notice how it wraps around the contours of the shirt itself. So that is a very unique feature, very awesome and useful. So I've been able to create this image and the mock-up. And if I'm happy with this particular mock-up, I can hit download the mock-up, but I can also change the color of the shirt, which this isn't going to work because of the text, but you can see how powerful that is. Maybe I make it gray. So now we have a gray shirt, our mock-up on there where we want it. I can save to my uploads for one, which I will do. So now this image will sit in my uploads. And then I can also download this whole mock-up here. And we get this file here, which is about 3000 by 3000 pixels. So you get a nice high resolution mock-up file you can use to promote your designs pretty effectively. But when we're done, we click back to the editor. And again, if I want to, I can go to print, choose something. Again, I can choose a hoodie. I position where I want. Now, at the moment, the hoodie color is black. We want it to be white. I position the design where I want it within the print area here. And I can go ahead and I can actually order this straight from Kittl myself. So that is pretty handy to be able to even just print directly from the platform. You pay for it. You don't even have to go to another website if you're just looking to create something for yourself. So that's a really cool personal use for Kittl, which I think haven't really seen any other platforms work too effectively. Add to cart, print, go from there. It's pretty handy. So this means if you're designing shirts for clients, you can design it and print it all from the one platform really easily. It's all sitting there ready to go, which means you can provide a full service pretty easily. But naturally, you're going to want to download this when you're done with it for use on whatever platform you want to use. So again, we hit up the top right to download. You get some options. First of all, file type. Highly recommend, if you're using vectors, you want to use a PDF or an SVG. So if we had a vector design like we covered earlier, I want to keep it as a vector file format, which is one of these two here. PDF is probably going to be the most flexible. Otherwise, since we have an image, we can go with JPEG, but it will download with a white background. And if we want to print this on different colored shirts, PNG is going to be our best choice. We can control the pixel dimensions. These are pretty high, which is good. With 300 dpi, we can remove the background, so we get a nice transparent background, optimize quality, and hit download. Now I have this PNG, which is 6480 pixels by 7632 pixels. Very high resolution, perfect for use for print on demand or whatever I want to use it on because the resolution is nice and high. And some of the elements like the text are also vector elements, so we're able to basically output them at any size. So this is a really handy way to create high resolution designs, especially if you're not a graphic designer, but you want to have that edge of quality that a graphic designer has. I've cut ahead a little bit here to this project I've got here. It's a picture of me, my logo, and a little bit of text. And I want to show you a little bit about how brand kits work. So essentially, I've got this. This is a little bit of, this sort of matches my branding. And over here, we have brand kits. You can add a new brand kit, but essentially you have one by default, and you can actually add in things like styles, color styles, so that when you're working, they're all there available to you to use at the click of a button. So first of all, I can click the little pencil, and I can call it Creator Impact Brand Kit, and now it has a new name. Now, there are things like text styles. I can click here to create a new style, and click it from there, or if I click on this text here, as I click it, it brings up the options for it on the right. And you see the 4 dots where it says styles. I can click that, and as long as I have this brand kit selected, I can click apply style to brand kit. And you can see it has my style, which is basically the font, that kind of thing. If I click on this one here, it will apply that style to the image. I can also edit this style. As you can see, it is the font Montserrat, it's bold, and even has kept things like the text spacing and line spacing. So I can actually apply that style across the board. And even with color styles here, I can click new style, and essentially add a color to that kit. So I can apply that style of black. I can add a new style. Maybe I decide I want to go for a real charcoal color. I can apply that style again. And even if I use a particular transparency, so if I click new style, where it says black, I can change the transparency to say 60%. I can apply a semi-transparent style there as well. So you can do this and apply shadows, text shading styles, text decorations. So if you look at the text decoration we did on the t-shirt design, the Way of the Warrior, we can apply that if we were to using that a fair bit, or even photo filter styles. So if I add a new style, bring the saturation down to 0, increase the contrast a little bit, add that style. Most of my images are black and white, so if I decide to zoom out a bit, create a new artboard, just off to the side here, add an image of some sort, let's just say, add this guy over here. By selecting this guy here, going to my brand kits, choosing photo filter, clicking that, it'll actually make that black and white. So I can set up, now I'll probably adjust this a little bit, but you get the idea. Get these nice presets you can use to apply to your brand. So you can add in a number of colors, choose the font you want to use, any styling here to add that to your brand kit. So that's a really handy way to keep certain things on file if you're working constantly on, say, social media and other elements within your business or your personal brand. You can use brand kits here to actually kind of template up some of those fonts and styles, so that way they're always available at the click of a button. So you can do this for yourself, or if you manage multiple clients and you're a designer, you can use that too. Makes it all very easy, especially for repeat customers, to be able to keep on referring to those styles. But I'm going to move on a little bit. So now we're back on the homepage and we can find a template we can work with. So I'm going to come down to art prints. And it's going to load up a bunch of art prints that we can use. Since we've been running a lot with the theme of skulls, let's go with this one here. So we have our project open. I can grab these elements as we did before. One thing I want to touch on is this Kittl Copilot. If I click on that, I can say, change to an image of a skull wearing sunglasses. Click this little arrow. I get some graphics I can use, but I'm going to hit replace with AI. And you can see it's generated a skull wearing sunglasses. So I can actually, and it's cut out the background. So using the Copilot is a really powerful tool for making AI edits. And of course I can change the text. It says spider. That's pretty good, but I can resize it if I want to. I can rotate it and make it a bit different. But I can also go in and make my usual edits. Now, one thing that's really cool, if I zoom in here, is if I come down, I can change the spacing between the letters. At the moment it's 100. Maybe I want them to be closer together. I can go 10 to close those up. So this is a nice little adjustment for making images, or sorry, for making the letters closer or further apart. Also, if I want that line to be a bit tighter, I can bring that in closer here as well. And I can do all the usual edits, so text shading, all that I would normally do, and edit any of this text as I see fit. So it's really quite handy. And if at any point I want to work on a different template, maybe I move to, say, this one, and you'll notice if I zoom out, I've got these two artboards, the original and this one. I can bring this one closer, and I can continue to add templates to my project. So I can still go in and make those edits. So again, we've got the text here. It says fallen. I can say warrior again, since that seems to be a bit of a theme. Whoops. Bring that text size down. We can resize it. We can make some edits as well. So even here, I can still right click on any of these images. And once again, I can use Copilot. This is actually a group at the moment. So if I right click and click ungroup, I can separate these elements. So this is a pretty cool image. However, maybe I want to erase some of the stuff on the top here. So I can grab my eraser and I can neaten that up if I decide that that's what I want to do. I don't necessarily think that's the best choice here, but just an example of how the tool can work. And I have all the usual options. Maybe I decide I want the shadow on the other side. So again, flip horizontal, change any of this text. So it's pretty handy. And just to give you an idea, we'll head back to the templates just to finish up. And the amount of templates you have is really cool. And like I mentioned at the start of the video, these are some of the best design templates I've seen on an editing platform that's available to start with. These look like they've been made by some pretty decent designers, was a lot of the time some of the templates you get on, say, some of the other platforms are a little bit plain in comparison. I think there's some really good ones here that you can easily work with if you just want something to start with. And like I said, if you're running a print-on-demand store, going to merchandise, searching for something like Christmas, if you're looking to create some Christmas-themed sort of t-shirts or merchandise, there's a bunch of designs here you can easily work with. So this is just a really powerful platform, not only for the editing capability, but the fact that you have a strong starting point in so many different ways that allow you to really create some powerful designs. So if you want to check out Kittl, there's a link in the description. They are a sponsor of today's video, and they've given my audience 25% off with the coupon code WADEYT. You get 25% off your first month or first year for all paid plans for new users. So check it out. That link is in the description. Otherwise, if you have any questions about this video or Kittl itself, leave a comment below and we'll see if we can answer them, or possibly even work on a dedicated video for some of this stuff so we can keep on diving deeper into this powerful platform. Otherwise, thanks for watching the video, guys, and I hope to see you again soon. Have a great day.